Good morning. My name is Dr. William T. Smith. I'm the NGO Committee on Aging Chair, and it's my honor to welcome all of you and our distinguished panel to this 34th celebration of the International Day of Older Persons. It's an awesome work that we're about, and there's so much more work to do. And you come from many places far from here, and we appreciate that. The program will conclude at 1 p.m. because there is another program coming into this room after that. And there will be questions in your folders in front of your papers for your index cards for your questions, and they will be picked up, and then we'll try and respond to as many of them as we can. So I think I've concluded my welcome. Enjoy the program. Ariana and Chris have done an incredible job of working and pulling this together. Ariana?
Thank you, Bill, for your unwavering support and guidance throughout the organizing of this event. Distinguished ambassadors, esteemed delegates, and honored guests, good morning, everyone. It is a great honor to welcome you all to the 34th commemoration of the United Nations International Day of Older Persons. Today, we come together under the theme, the importance of strengthening care and support systems for older persons worldwide. We are here today to celebrate older persons for their contributions to their families, their communities, and their nation's prosperity. My name is Arianita Elezai, and it is my honor and privilege to serve as this year's Chair of United Nations International Day of Older Persons, along with the co-chair of this event, Christopher Hanway, and our colleague, Babi Nassar. I am one of the main representatives of the United Nations International Federation of Settlement Houses and Neighborhood Centers, a global movement of over 14,000 neighborhood-based entities around the globe. I extend my sincere appreciation to all our partners and participants for joining us today. Your presence underscored the importance of this occasion and our shared commitment to upholding the human rights of older persons as shaping policies that strengthen care and support systems both for today and tomorrow. Care and support transcend the mere provision of physical comfort. They encompass the fundamental rights of each individual, the right to health, to freedom from ageism and age discrimination, to long-term and palliative care, and to live free from violence, abuse, and neglect. We must recognize older persons are right holders, not simply recipients of medical rehabilitation or social welfare. However, we must also challenge stereotypes. Not all older persons are frail or fragile, nor they are always in the receiving part of care. Many contribute significantly by providing care and support to others, often without compensation. Our perspective on care must be holistic. It includes the social determinants of health, ensuring access to safe water, adequate sanitation, nutritious food, suitable housing, and healthy living conditions. It means providing health-related education and information, and crucially, involving older persons in health-related decision-making process. For those who are chronically or terminally ill, our care must prioritize comfort, minimizing avoidable pain and enabling a dignified end of life. Care providers are partners in this journey, not custodians. Our support and care systems must reflect and respect the right of both providers and recipients. In a sense, we are not just discussing physical care, but the preservation of human dignity and the right throughout the entire life course. Before we dive into today's activities, I would also like to express my sincere appreciation to the Department of Economic and Social Affairs team, Program on Aging, for their vital role in jointly organizing this important event. Their dedication, efforts have been instrumental in bringing all of us together to focus on these important issues, especially the chief of the DESA Program on Aging, Amal Abu Rafeh, who with her wise advice and thoughtful diplomacy kept this ship sailing. The focal point of this event, the smart, eloquent, patient, compassionate, caring and dedicated Alia Talal Masad, for her consistent and persistent help, as well as the support of Mian Huang and Katya Kosicek. Critically important to the success of this event has been the technical magic of Lamin Lamrabat and Simone Miyingo, and the whole BCSS team that allows this event to be heard and transmitted globally. I would like to take a brief moment to express my gratitude and appreciation to all of the individuals who worked tirelessly to bring this event to you today. Our fearless leader, William Smith, my co-chair, Christopher Hanway, Luca Pertenava, and Vincent Ng, as well as all of our colleagues on the NGO Committee on Aging here in New York, who offered hard work, guidance, and technical support. In particular, Kathy Weiss, Erika Dar, Magda Kaczmarska, Francis Zainoedin, Cynthia Stuen, Robin Fenley, and Bethany Brown. Thank you all. As we engage with today's speakers and discussions, let's seize this opportunity to learn from one another and strengthen our resolve. Together, we can promote solidarity, combat ageism, and build a future where older persons enjoy security, autonomy, dignity, and comprehensive care and support systems. Your folders contain a special message from Secretary General Antonio Guterres, emphasizing that respecting the human rights of both care recipients and caregivers is fundamental to building more resilient societies. Let's watch a video message from Mr. Guy Ryder, the Under-Secretary General for Policy, who will share his insights with us.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to speak at this important event to mark the United Nations International Day of Older Persons. And this year's theme brings together the reality of global aging and the crucial role of care and support systems within that context. And it's a privilege to age. We all hope to do it. And so the decisions that we make today to expand and to protect the rights of older persons impact every one of us, now and in the future. And care options vary significantly across countries and individual circumstances. They are shaped by the availability of services, cultural norms, and financial situations. And it's therefore vital that policymakers take action to create fair and effective policies that enable every one of us to balance work and family demands and addressing the gendered nature of care work. Women, including older women, comprise the great majority of caregivers often carrying a disproportionate burden. So as the United Nations prepares itself and the member states it serves for the opportunities and for the challenges of the future, the principles of independence, participation, care, self-fulfillment, and dignity must guide every aspect of our work. Upholding the autonomy and the agency of older persons must be the driving force of policies and systems that impact their lives. And intergenerational solidarity is central to that objective. It calls on us to work collectively across all ages and stages of life to uphold and protect the human rights of all individuals and to accelerate progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And I want to extend my gratitude to the Permanent Mission of Argentina for sponsoring this event, and I also welcome the launch of the Titchfield City Group's report on invisible ageing by the United Kingdom Office for National Statistics. These efforts mark significant milestones in raising awareness on ageing issues and the rights of older persons worldwide, now and in the future. Together, let us take action for a better future of care, respect, and dignity for all. Thank you very much.
I thank the Undersecretary General, Guy Ryder, for his video message. I'd like now to introduce the esteemed President of the Economic Social Council, the Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Canada to the United Nations in New York, His Excellency, Mr. Bob Rae.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much, Ariana. Thank you, Bill, for your welcoming today. Excellencies, I think I see a few excellencies out there, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and privilege for me as the President of the Economic and Social Council to welcome you on behalf of the Council. And I want to thank the NGO Committee on Aging for the introduction and for your great commitment and tireless advocacy in working to bring issues related to older persons and their human rights to the very forefront of the global agenda. I very much appreciate not only your partnership in today's important event, but to your leadership in the event. Because truth be told, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be able to have an event like this with such diversity in the room, with so many people from civil society, so many people engaging with us from outside the member state community. And it's vital that we recognize your great leadership in this. I've been told that this, in fact, is an event that we have been celebrating and commemorating for over 3 decades. As someone who deeply appreciates the importance of today's celebration, I want to recognize that it has significance not only for you, it also has significance, as you can perhaps tell by looking at me, for me as well. As I always continue to say, the youth of today will be the older persons of tomorrow as well. In a little more than half a century, older persons aged 65, although I have to confess, I don't think of 65 as being very old at all, will outnumber children under 18 worldwide. And we have to understand the significance of this great, large demographic trend which is stretching throughout our societies, and realize that it is extremely vital to understand its significance for the future of all of our societies. This is a shift in our demography, which is, frankly, largely irreversible, and it will influence all our efforts to achieve a society and a future that is more inclusive, more prosperous, and more sustainable. Sometimes we might present this as some kind of threat or risk or danger, but I think that's the wrong way to see it. We should be looking at it as an opportunity for us to understand better what is it that these global trends will do to shape the trajectory, the consequences of everything else that happens in our society. And I encourage all of you to pay particular attention to this event which is upcoming in Qatar in November, which is the Social Summit. Because at the Global Social Summit, we'll have an opportunity to talk about the significance of this. So part of my job as president of ECOSOC is to introduce the ideas that you come up with, the reports that are presented, the issues that you bring, and take them to the floor of the General Assembly and try to get member states to become more engaged and more understanding of why these issues are so critical in the planning that we all do in our own countries. It affects every country. It affects every part of the globe. It affects all economies and all societies. It affects healthcare. It affects education. It affects employment. And yes, it even affects taxation. Each stage of life can contribute to or detract from well-being in older ages. It also means incorporating your voices, your needs, and your aspirations, and the voices and needs of the organizations that are here so well represented, into areas like poverty reduction, health, education, gender equality, and climate change. In other words, the social development goals that we all talk about, and that some of you will see we're wearing our pins today that reflect that. I want to make one other point, which is I think we have to understand that human rights are also at the core of what this issue is all about. Because without a rights-based approach, affirming that older age does not diminish a person's value or dignity, we risk enforcing and reinforcing ageism, rather than fostering the inclusivity we all seek to promote. I know something of ageism. I hear of it almost every day, sometimes in jokes, sometimes in comments, sometimes in self-deprecating remarks that I make myself. But we have to understand that it actually is a terrible thing. It's an affront to dignity, and it's an affront to human rights, and it's an affront to the right of people at every stage of their life to contribute to and to be a part of our societies, not to be warehoused, not to be excluded, not to be set aside, and not to be silenced. And that's why it's so important that we recognize the significance of this event and the voices that need to come forward. We need to have a plan of action on aging, as the Madrid International Plan sets out. The plan emphasizes that promoting and protecting all human rights and all freedoms are fundamental for creating a society that we want to be inclusive, where, as we say at the UN almost every day, no one is left behind. One in which older persons can participate fully and without discrimination and on the basis of equality. This International Day's theme on care and support systems is a wonderful opportunity for a rallying call to redouble our commitment to promoting the human rights of older persons and fostering societies for all ages. We need to understand the profound economic and social impact of what it means to care for others and how many people around the world are doing this on a daily basis. How deeply it affects not only those who are receiving care, but those who are giving care. And for us to understand that economically and socially, this is a huge issue. At the risk of embarrassing him, may I also welcome Mr. Josh Carter with us, the grandson of Jimmy Carter. Whenever we think of a family that has put service and has put care at the heart of what they have stood for, we all think of the Carter family. And just as we recognized President Carter's 100th birthday last week, I think it's appropriate, very appropriate, that we have Josh with us today because he's got some remarkable things to tell us about the importance of service. This is a difficult day for many. It is a day of commemoration and it is a day of recognition. It is a day where we are having to engage in some important events elsewhere in the UN today and in the UN system as we commemorate these difficult moments. But this event here today is actually a day of celebration. It's a day where we celebrate life and how life goes on and how life requires us to pay attention to each one of us, to all those who can serve and all those who can give. So I wish you great success in the program, in the launches, in the panel discussions, which will be very rich. which we hope will inspire meaningful discussions and outcomes. Merci beaucoup. Je vous remercie. Thank you so much. It's great to have you with us, and I really appreciate the opportunity to say a few words. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I would like to thank you, Your Excellency Bob Rai, President of the Economic and Social Council, for your inspiring remarks and for your leadership. Your words have set a thoughtful tone for our discussions today and underscore the importance of our shared mission. We deeply appreciate your commitment to addressing the critical issues facing older persons. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Her Excellency, Mrs. Paula Narvaez Ojeda, Permanent Representative of Chile to the United Nations, to deliver remarks on behalf of the Group of Friends of Older Persons. This coalition of member states, established over a decade ago in New York, is dedicated to advocating for the rights and dignity of older persons, including the pursuit of an international convention to ensure these rights are upheld. The group has been open and responsive to the perspectives of NGOs, actively engaging with us to ensure that our voices are heard and considered. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me thank William and Arjanita for your warm welcome and for organizing this important event. Also, let me thank DESA for your permanent commitment with this agenda. His Excellency Mr. Bob Rai, President of the ECOSOC, my dear fellow colleagues from Argentina and Saudi Arabia, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, representatives of the NGO Committee on Aging here in New York. It is an honor to join you all today on this important occasion as we commemorate the 34th United Nations International Day of Older Persons. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to all the co-organizers for making today's gathering possible. The Group of Friends of Older Persons is committed to placing older persons and their human rights at the center of our agenda. Today's theme, Aging with Dignity, the importance of strengthening care and support systems for older persons worldwide, is a call to action to address the critical challenges facing our societies in ensuring that older persons live dignified lives supported by comprehensive care systems. Our world is witnessing a significant demographic transformation. By 2050, it is expected that more than 1.5 billion people will be aged 65 or older. This change indicates that the need for adequate care and support systems will continue to grow. As we face this global shift, it is imperative that we take a long-term intergenerational approach to shaping our care system, systems that reflect the values of equity, inclusiveness, and respect for human rights. Today's theme calls upon us to strengthen care and support systems for older persons, emphasizing that aging with dignity is not simply about providing care, but about empowering individuals, fostering independence, and valuing the profound contribution of our elders. Dignity in aging is about recognizing older persons as full participants in our societies, whose voices, wisdom, and experience enrich our communities. Today, we face a growing crisis. There is a shortage of caregivers, both formal and informal, needed to meet the increasing demands of our aging populations. We know that family, especially women, bear much of the caregiving burden globally. Too often, they are left unsupported and invisible in our policies. It is time to recognize caregiving as a fundamental component of social cohesion and human development. Caregiving is not only a family responsibility, it is a societal one. We must work across governments, civil society, the private sector, and communities to create a comprehensive network of support that values and invests in both care recipients and caregivers. It is through such collaboration that we will ensure that no one is left behind. The group of Friends of Older Persons has been advocating for greater recognition of the human rights of older persons, including access to quality care services and social protection. But we still face a significant gap. There is no international legally binding instrument to protect the rights of older persons comprehensively. Until we address this gap, we must be vigilant and proactive in ensuring that the needs and rights of older persons are prioritized and not neglected. The recently adopted Pact for the Future provides us with a comprehensive framework to think beyond today and plan for a future where aging populations are celebrated, supported, and integrated into every aspect of our societies. It is imperative that we sustain the momentum we have gained in recent years, ensuring that the voices and experience of older persons remain central to this process. Their perspective must be heard, respected, and integrated into policy making. Only by truly listening to older persons can we build systems that meet their needs and uphold their dignity. As we gather here today, let us remember that aging is not an issue of us and them. It is about all of us. It is about building societies that value every stage of life and ensuring that we are prepared to care for one another, now and in the future. The group of Friends of Older Persons stands ready to work alongside each of you to advance these goals, and I'm confident that together we can make a meaningful difference in the lives of older persons and ensure that they age with dignity. And I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Narvaez Ojeda, for your remarks and the continued dedication of the group of Friends of Older Persons. We are particularly honored today to welcome His Excellency Mr. Abdul Aziz Al Wasil, Permanent Representative of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to the United Nations, as this marks the first time Saudi Arabia is speaking at the International Day of Older Persons. His presence today underscores the commitment of even the most youthful nation to enhance the recognition of the dignity of older persons. Mr. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to begin by expressing my gratitude to DESA and the NGO Committee on Aging for organizing today's International Day of Older Persons commemorative event. I look forward to the important discussions on care and support system that lie ahead. Today, I am honored to announce that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, along with several esteemed member states, have been diligently working on an important initiative, the establishment of a group of friends on aging and sustainable development. This cross-regional group aims to alleviate the issue of population aging on the global political agenda and drive meaningful evidence-based policy changes. For over 2 decades, the issue of population aging has struggled to gain preeminence in global discussions. This is partly due to the varying stages of demographic transition across different countries and regions. However, recent data compels us to act with urgency. Globally, life expectancy at birth reached 73.3 years in 2024, an impressive increase of more than 8.4 years since 1995. This statistic alone paints a clear picture of our rapid aging world. But the projections for future generations even more striking. Those born in 2050 in more developing regions are projected to spend more than twice as much of their lives as old persons compared to their youth. Similarly, those born in 2050 in less developing countries are expected to spend almost twice as much of their lives in older age compared to their youth. These projections underscore why our group of member states have stepped up to seize these opportunities, collaborate with other entities, and drive policy discussions and change for a benefit of all. We must acknowledge that older persons constitute a heterogeneous group with diverse needs and aspirations. Regrettably, ageism remains prevalent among us. However, the substantial lengthening of the average human lifespan represents one of the great trumps of social and economic development. Despite these remarkable changes, current discourse and policies often fail to capture the reality of our aging world. There is a lack of political will and interest to push the UN leadership to fully account for these realities and their implications for sustainable development goals. This is where evidence-based policy making becomes crucial. By leveraging data and research, we can create more effective and targeted policies that address the unique challenges and opportunity represented by an aging population. An analysis of recent voluntary national reviews from the high-level political forum reveals some encouraging connections, but also highlights area for improvement. For instance, a quarter member states that reported at the high-level political forum made the link between SDGs 8 and older persons, recognizing the importance of the future of work and decent work for all ages. However, notable gaps persist. For example, references to SDGs 4 were missing, failing to link aging populations with education and lifelong learning. Without this connection, how can we effectively address the need to upscale and rescale our aging workforce? Our group of friends aim to help make these crucial connections and promote evidence-based approaches and policy development. We recognize that today's youth are tomorrow's older persons. And by addressing these issues now, we are securing a better future for all generations. We want to encourage other member states to adopt this forward-thinking, data-driven approach. I am pleased to announce that colleagues from the following member states have joined Saudi Arabia in this initiative: Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Egypt, Italy, Japan, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Uzbekistan. We welcome membership from all interested member states and look forward to engaging with relevant stakeholders, including across the UN system. The establishment of the Group of Friends on Aging and Sustainable Development is not just timely, it is essential. We stand at a crucial juncture where our evidence-based actions today will shape the quality of life for billions in the decades to come. I urge all of you to join us in this vital endeavor to ensure that our policies and programs reflect the realities of our aging world and to create a future where people of all ages can thrive. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Al-Wasil, for your remarks. We are pleased to welcome the launch of the Group of Friends on Aging and Sustainable Development. The NGO Committee on Aging looks forward to collaborating closely with your delegations on this important initiative. I would like now to acknowledge the permanent mission of Argentina for its long-standing commitment to older persons at the United Nations. We are grateful for your sponsorship of today's event. I now invite Mr. Fabiano Dona, Deputy Permanent Representative of Argentina, to deliver his remarks on behalf of His Excellency Mr. Ricardo Ernesto Lagoria, Permanent Representative of Argentina to the United Nations. Mr. O'Donnell, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Excellencies, colleagues, friends, I would like to start by congratulating the NGO Committee on Aging and the Department of Economic and Social Affairs for their great effort in organizing this very important event. Population aging is a global reality that requires global responses. Always bear in mind the dignity and human rights of the person throughout their full course of life. Aging is a huge challenge for our societies, which must adapt their policies and systems to guarantee the quality of life and human rights of older persons. We must leave behind the culture of cancel people just because they reach a certain age. The cancellation and age discrimination of older persons lead to a waste of talent, experiences, and contributions to our economies and societies. In the 21st century, the reality of older persons is overcoming the old stereotypes of limitations and dependency, mutating towards active lifestyles with significant and productive participation in our communities. All we need to do is to guarantee that everyone can age with rights. The current international legal framework provides a fragmented and inconsistent coverage of human rights of older persons in law and in practice. In this framework, the open-ended working group of aging, chaired by Argentina since its inception, made a milestone step by adopting the Decision 14/1, which is the first document with recommendations regarding the identification of possible gaps in the protection of human rights of older persons, how best to address them. It was an honor and a great responsibility for my country to chair the open-ended working group, which now has completed its work after the adoption of the decision, and it was established by also a resolution of the General Assembly. Regarding the adoption of that decision, let me recognize the participation of national human rights institutions and civil society organizations whose contributions enrich the deliberations. We are convinced that to respond to the several challenges faced by older persons, such as the care and support system in a context of population aging worldwide, it's necessary to move towards an international legally binding instrument to fully protect the human rights and fundamental freedoms of older persons. Let me finish by inviting you to renew the commitments in favor of the protection and promotion of the dignity and human rights of every person, including all older persons. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Permanent Representative, and thank you to the Ambassador Lagorio for Argentina's continued dedication and support to advancing the human rights and well-being of older persons. It is now my pleasure to invite Beth Finkel, State Director of ARP New York, to the lectern to introduce our keynote speaker. Beth's dedications and leadership in the field of aging have been truly inspiring, and we are honored to have her guide us into this important part of today's program. Beth, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. It's truly my pleasure to be here as we gather to celebrate the United Nations International Day of Older Persons. This is not just a day for celebration. It is an important opportunity for all of us to advocate for our human rights and ensure that voices are heard across all communities on this platform to the international community. At ARP, our mission is to empower people to choose how they live as they age. We work tirelessly across all of the United States, including right here in New York City, to champion the rights and well-being of older persons. Our state team engages with local leaders, community organizations, and older persons themselves to address key issues to access health care, financial security, and age-friendly communities. Nationally, AARP is a leader in age-friendly communities. As a matter of fact, we're the conveners of age-friendly communities in the United States. And Bethany Brown, who many of you may know, represents AARP as a Director of Global Aging. It is really, we are very fortunate in all the work that we do to partner with the Commissioner of Aging, Lorraine Cortez Vasquez, in our work. Under her leadership, Commissioner Cortez Vasquez and the department really have been a beacon of support and advocacy for older New Yorkers. And together, we've made great strides in creating programs and initiatives that not only support, but also uplift our older population. From combating ageism to ensuring access to basic services and supporting intergenerational solidarity. Our collaboration is vital in creating a city that truly works for everyone, regardless of age. In fact, most people I know would say that New York City is literally the exemplar of age-friendly work. It's easy for me to do this because Lorraine is a dear friend. She has been a mentor to myself and so many others, and probably many that are here. By the way, she is an AARP alumni also. So I am sincerely honored to welcome Commissioner Cortez Vasquez today. Her commitment to enhancing the quality of life for older persons in our city is commendable. Really more than commendable. And her keynote address will undoubtedly inspire us all. Please join me in warmly welcoming Commissioner Lorraine Cortez Vasquez to the lectern.
Thank you, Beth. It's always a pleasure. Can you hear me? Good morning. Buenos días para mis colegas de Chile, México y Argentina. Y gracias, Argentina, por dándonos esta ocasión hoy. Good morning to all. I'm honored to be here today to talk about caregiving for older adults and with some of the world's most respected thought leaders. I am thrilled to be here with you, Josh Cotter, because your mother really was the one that made aging and caregiving a hallmark and made all of us take note of it. So thank you. I'm truly honored to be here with you and so many others. it is great minds. There are a lot of great minds in this audience, and also I hear on video. So what we can do today is really learn from each other. What are some of the best practices? Where is it that we have gaps? Where do we have silos? And make sure that we break those. You know, you started this, I heard the president talk about, you started this, we're celebrating the 20th year. Well, aging has changed tremendously in 20 years. The growth in the aging population, the lifespan of the aging population has changed, and each one of those presents a challenge to us. Around the globe, we know that older adults are increasing. That in itself is not the big issue. The issue is the rapid growth and the longevity and the strides that we have made in health. So we have to make sure that our services, our policy, our legislation are in place and keep pace with that growth. We also know that there is a corresponding rise in the need for formal and informal caregiving. Yet as care systems, we have to keep up. Families carrying the weight of caregiving contribute about $11 trillion to the global economy without proper recognition. As we are all aware, care work in the US and globally, both formal, paid, and informal, unpaid family, friends, and others, is mostly carried out by women, as our representative from Chile said. And that adds another economical and social dimension that we have to look at. At every level, the challenge at times feels insurmountable, but it's not. We have lots of good practices that we can put in place. We have lots of good examples. It is doable to start really putting together a care system globally that is one of dignity and also responds to the needs of older adults. Today I'm going to share with you how New York City, the largest area agency on aging, has attempted to address this and how we have engaged and collaborated with other cities in the United States to address the challenge at a national level. Because we believe in age-friendly. We know that age-friendly was a major and essential first step. But we want to move now to making sure that globally we are age-inclusive, that we are anchoring the two pillars of society, our youth and our older adults, but also an integrated society where it is age-inclusive. For New York City, and for me, as a native New Yorker, the conversation always starts with ageism. As our president so aptly said, it is not just a conversation of a few harmless jokes about memory loss, growing gray, wrinkles. It is a pervasive discrimination. It is an assault. In fact, I pretend that it has a negative impact on individuals and societies as racism and sexism does. It shows up in biased attitudes, harmful actions, policies, and even some legislation. It holds in place stereotypes that strip people of their value. We even see it in the healthcare system, where ageism often leads to the assumption that certain conditions, such as pain, depression, even cognitive decline, are just sort of part of aging. Well, they're not, and they're not dealt with as possible health issues, resulting in undiagnosis and undertreatment. The internalized oppression of ageism also has serious consequences. I do not find it funny when someone says that I look young for my age. I find that offensive. I am my age. And I should just stand in that place with pride and dignity. And I expect you to stand in that place of pride and dignity with me, as we should with all older adults. Studies have shown that older adults who harbor negative attitudes towards aging live an average of 7.5 years less than those who view aging more positively. I want those 7.5 years. On a broader level, ageism can perpetuate the belief that caring for older adults is a burden rather than a vital contribution to society. Many of the speakers this morning have talked about that. We need to see aging as an asset and something that societies can build on. The devaluation of this necessary attention to older adults makes it harder to secure the financial, emotional, and structural supports needed to address this emerging issue. I am proud to say that ageism has no place in New York. As an older adult, as a native New Yorker, I personally deal with it every day. In the Big Apple, we call it out every time we see it, we hear it, or experience it. We made it our mission to eliminate ageism and ensure dignity and the quality of life for nearly 1.8 million older adults who live here. We stand up for older adults by helping them age in place in the communities that they help build. The foundation of our approach is community care, a holistic, person-centered model that enables older adults to remain independent in communities while receiving necessary care for both formal and informal services and their caregivers. The model emphasizes emotional, physical, and financial support for older adults. It aligns with the 2022 ACL National Strategy to support family caregivers and reduces silos between health, social, and other infrastructure systems. Launched in 2021, our community care plan was changed and adopted to address the diverse population in New York City. It provides a range of services that ensure older adults can age in place, which includes home-delivered meals, case management, transportation, caregiver support, in-home care, and fosters collaboration with community health providers. The plan signaled the city's commitment to keeping older adults in their community, the cornerstone of a vision for an age-inclusive city where all people can live, work, thrive with dignity. Building on our initial success in 2022, we created the Cabinet of our older New Yorkers. I was speaking to my colleague from, and he was talking about they did this in Massachusetts a few years ago, maybe decades ago. A groundbreaking multi-agency collaboration that eliminates silos, identifying gaps, streamlines services, and develops collaborative city policies as well as collaborative care approach that meet the needs of the multitude of distinct older populations in New York. One that is also culturally, economically, and age diverse. In New York, through our cabinet, we address the needs of 4 distinct age cohorts: 60 to 65, 66 to 75, 70 to 85, and 86 plus. Although there are common areas, such as food insecurities, that may cut across these diverse age cohorts, there are also unique needs that are needed to support the daily lives of each one of these groups. Our community care approach looks at those distinctions and also addresses it. Staying in their homes and community not only keeps older adults healthier and longer, but it also keeps them socially connected. And when you're socially connected, you're also supporting your mental health well-being. Community care often offers the support they need at a fraction of the cost of institutional care. We are not against institutional care. That should be a choice of a family and individuals. That being said, institutional care costs approximately, in 2021, $154,000 per individual, compared to $32,000 for a community care approach, which included meals, in-home services, and transportation. 3 years later, institutional care is now $177,800 annually, while community care costs $61,776 per year. Now, as an honest, loving firm bureaucrat, I say it makes good sense and good public sense, and the public, taxpayers would agree, to have a community care plan where you can have people with dignity in their home for $61,000 a year. We can't talk about community care without discussing caregivers, who are a vital part. I lost my place. Who are a vital part for those aging in place. As a caregiver for my 95-year-old mom, I understand just how tough it can be to navigate services, even for me. And I'm the head of the largest area agency in the United States of America. And I am daunted by the process. Caregiving is exhausting and overwhelming. But it is an honor and a privilege I would not give up for anything. And I want to thank Rosalind Carter for really highlighting this and the crises that we are confronting in this country and globally also. I imagine how difficult it must be for someone who is unfamiliar with the aging resources and the challenges before them. It is unbelievable. You are just a daughter, a goddaughter, a niece. You don't even know where to begin. And by the time that you're even seeking assistance, it's because you're in crises. That's what we need to do and prevent when we look at caregiving and the informal caregiving system. Therefore, in addition to direct services for older adults and companion medical supports, we recognize, as most do, that the vital role that caregivers play in this community care approach. It cannot be done. They are an essential part of every plan. And as such, we include caregiver supports as an integral part of our community care plan. In fact, the data proves an essential truth, as Rosalind Carter always said, everyone is either going to become a caregiver or need one at some point in your life. With that in mind, we must focus on the need of well-trained and well-paid formal caregivers, but we also need to think about the needs of the millions of informal caregivers and help them navigate the complexities of providing care, like learning first to self-identify. You are a caregiver in addition to being the daughter. And not just as someone fulfilling a familial duty. New York City Aging supports caregivers through a range of essential service, including counseling, respite care. Trust me, someone making one call for me is worth millions of dollars to me. So that's one time I do not have to do that. Respite care comes in many, many forms, and long-term care planning tools, all to reduce stress, improve the quality of life, improve the quality of care, and also sustain the health and well-being of both the caregiver and the care recipient. We're championing local and federal legislation to provide more flexibility and protections in the workplace. Caregiving impacts your life and your professional life. Locally, we are fighting to expand accommodations for caregivers under New York City's human rights laws, ensuring that they can keep their jobs while still caring for a loved one. We are also pushing for the ability for local city employees to use more sick time for caregiving responsibilities. And federally, we are working to expand the Family Medical Leave Act to include extended family members and non-relatives, reflecting the diversity of caregiving relationships in our community. Our community care model is successful. Why? Because we're constantly evaluating it, assessing it, and making sure that it is evidence-based and that the data drives the plan. This is not the one plan fits all. As older populations change, we have to change. And New York City is a wonderful model because we have one of the diverse populations. There is no assembly member or state member in this United Nations who does not have a representative of an older adult person in New York City. So our models can work for your countries also. Like the UN, we believe that care economy can pave the way for women's empowerment and true economy. We're inspired by the global movement built out of the care economy based on the International Labor Organization's 5R framework: recognize, reduce, redistribute, reward, and represent, that ensures that care work is valued, shared fairly, compensated, and well represented. We also see other countries using models to address caregiving challenges. Like Australia, they have passed laws to support informal caregivers financially. In Norway, elder care systems reduce the pressure on family members by offering accessible services, while Sweden promotes shared caregiving responsibilities through paid leave policies. Japan has taken steps to ensure care workers receive fair wages, and Germany has empowered caregivers by giving them a voice in policy discussions. As we witness these advancements, it is clear that a global shift is underway, and our collective efforts are making a lasting impact. We're proud to see our work inspires others around the globe, as in Ireland. Well advanced in their care services, they were taking new steps to adopt New York City's approach of bringing together agencies to coordinate services for older adults and combat ageism with their own cabinet for older Dubliners. And I was very proud to see Cabinet for Older New York and a cabinet in Dublin. As part of the effort to make U.S. an age-inclusive nation, New York City has also partnered with 19 other cities throughout the United States through the Conference of Mayors, with also the goal of having an age-inclusive city work group to develop best practices and policy solutions. The collaboration is vital to ensuring that our population ages in our cities and receive the services that they need. Again, a community care model. Together, we are redefining how cities function for older adults and how caregiver supports are provided in those 19 cities. At the center of this initiative is the Age Inclusive American Cities Guidebook. This guidebook is a roadmap that has been put together by the 19 cities. New York, it wasn't only led by New York. 19 cities had a major role. It has 4 key areas that make a difference in setting up an age-inclusive plan: taking action, streamlining operations, rethinking city planning to be truly inclusive. We're working every day to get more cities involved to transform the United States into an age-inclusive nation. And we're also hoping that we can partner fully with AARP in this endeavor. The global care crisis is a challenge for all of us, and the solutions are universal. Each one of our nations has a role to play in reimagining care systems that work. To truly address this, as I said, we have to take on ageism at every turn, in every policy, and in every interaction. Calling it out, challenging it, condemning it, it will hold poor quality services and deter the creation of systems. By focusing on community care, we can build stronger, more inclusive society for all. I really want to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your remarkable work and unwavering dedication to improving the lives of older persons across the city. Your leadership in localizing the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly in creating the infrastructure for an age-inclusive city, ensuring that no older New Yorker is left behind, serves as a global model to how cities can actively contribute to sustainable development efforts. We now transition to an important part of today's program, highlighting the vital role of caregivers. In collaboration with Department of Economic and Social Affairs, a program on aging, the Global Coalition on Aging, and the WETA TV, the primary PBS station in Washington, D.C., we will explore the experiences and contributions of caregivers. Who are at the heart of support systems for older persons. It is my pleasure to invite Mike Hodin, the CEO of the Global Coalition on Aging, to introduce this segment. Mike, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As indicated, I'm Mike Hodin, CEO and founder of the Global Coalition on Aging. My main job and delightful honor is to introduce Tom Kyoto from WETA. You should all be very nice to him because by next spring he will introduce you to Bradley Cooper, who is the main caregiver in the documentary and a great supporter of this. But before I ask Tom to come up, I just want to spend a moment. First of all, you've heard the names Masumi Ono and Amal Abu Rafeh. I don't know where you are, but thank you again for your partnership and friendship and great collaboration from UNDESA and Global Coalition on Aging representing the private sector, and particularly in this caregiving effort. So congratulations on what you're doing. Before Tom comes up, I just want to make 3 points as background. Number one, to remind us, as has been suggested, that the reason we're focused on this huge need around caregiving, which has always been with us, is because of global aging. In our 21st century, one of our megatrends is global aging, and therefore, as there are more old people, there will be 2 billion of us on the planet over 60 in the next couple decades. And as many of us know, the fastest growing cohort of that are the 80-plus, many of whom will need care. And therefore, demand is far outstripping supply. And we need to call attention to this. We need to do things about it. The second point I'll make is that in the private sector, there is a great deal that is happening, and I'm so honored to have 2 of our Global Coalition members, Emily Allen, representing Home Instead, Honor Home Instead, and also, of course, Cindy Hutchins. I don't know, you're somewhere, Cindy, from Bank of America. Both of these companies are doing an enormous amount. Some of you may know Cindy is the only financial gerontologist we know and has done a great deal to help lead Bank of America in, among other things, highlighting elder caregiving as a major element, not only for Bank of America, but for all of its clients and companies, many Fortune 100 companies around the world. Home Instead more or less invented private sector elder home care at home close to 30 years ago when Paul and Lori Hogan invented it in Omaha, Nebraska. About 3 years ago, they were partnered with Honor, the technology company out of Silicon Valley. So I suggest to all of you to keep a very close eye on that space because we're going to see an enormous amount of advances and innovation. And the third point I want to make is standing here at the UN, sustainability through the Sustainable Development Goals is utterly key. We are not going to get there if we don't think of aging and caregiving as a major component of that. So we're really delighted to be part of this. And Tom, I'd like to ask you to come up now, and you'll take it from here. Executive producer, special projects, national program development, WETA, and we can't wait to see your clips and the full show starting, I guess, next spring. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Our deep gratitude to the Global Coalition, to the DESA team, and to the NGO Committee on Aging. The escalating need for care is a global issue with multiple contributing factors, including more people living to advanced ages. In the U.S., 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every day. As Mike mentioned, there are 647 million full-time unpaid caregivers globally. In a report released 1 week ago by the RAND Corporation, in the United States, there are 105.6 million family caregivers and more than 5.4 million young people under the age of 18 providing care. These are the invisible armies that are holding up our families and holding up our economies. These are the armies that deserve our support. They don't carry arms. They are the arms that carry the burdens of our loved ones, young and old, and they bring quality to our lives as we age. Within our countries and many cultures within a country, it may be a tradition to care for loved ones, but in far too many situations, it is not. I have been a caregiver 4 times in my life, but we all have a care story. And we know that the physical, mental health, and well-being of caregivers is at risk. The community of available caregivers, already insufficient, threatens to remain stagnant due to a general lack of financial support and resources. Lost earnings by family caregivers in the United States are estimated to exceed $67 billion. Our long-term care systems are trending to tip on the verge of crisis. When our systems provide a compassionate caregiving policy, it can protect the long-term health of its workforce and therefore protect our systems. Care is good for the public. Care is for the public good. So it may be no surprise that the story of caregiving would be created by the public broadcasting system, owned by the public, not for profit, and created to raise awareness, to educate, to reduce stigma and discrimination, and to change our national discourse about caregivers. We are storytellers. Along with Leah Pictures and ARC Media, we are producing Caregiving, a 2-hour documentary by executive producer and caregiver Bradley Cooper that will premiere in more than 330 PBS stations in June of 2025. The film will then be rebroadcast for up to 4 years and distributed internationally. It will be accompanied by a robust outreach, education, and engagement campaign available to teachers, students, and communities throughout our learning media channels. Also, for online consumption, we will produce more than 20 original digital short films about the many personal caregiving stories of challenge, joy, and triumph. Caregiving, which is part of a broader multi-platform campaign called Well-Beings, will reveal the vital impact of the caregiver's role in the family, the workplace, and the economy. The film will personalize this urgent issue through stories from caregivers and interviews with experts as they fight to give caregivers the security and support they provide for so many. The series will examine the creation and evolution of the care system, the social dynamics that share our approach to caregiving today, and the future possibilities. The lives of caregivers and their relationship with those in care, the interpersonal and economic pressures faced by caregivers, and the broader societal context in which caregiving operates on the margins yet affects everyone. The act of caregiving and receiving care touches the lives of us all. It underscores the challenging and fulfilling work of individuals who are the bedrock of a nation's long-term care system. We have mobilized national sponsors and partners for this project, some of them with us today, including our lead sponsor, Otsuka, and lead nonprofit partner, the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers. Today, we're launching our engagement campaign as part of International Older Persons Day with the first of 20 original films titled Generations. After you see this in a moment, we're delighted that Josh Carter, grandson of the late Rosalind Carter, and the first U.S. centenarian president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, will be interviewed by Wendy Noggle, editor-in-chief of People. Both Josh and Wendy are caregivers. To member states, I trust that you would agree that this issue touches all of our lives, no matter our origin. We become more whole when we choose to care for others. This selfless act is a most worthy cause for us to join forces and bring attention to the urgent support system needed to protect this often overlooked population. I close with the words of our filmmaker, Chris Dorrance, who's with us today, that caregiving is one of the most consequential issues affecting families today, and we are so honored to be working on this project and giving voice to the caregivers whose lives, work, and struggles have too long gone unrecognized. Now let's watch some storytelling. Thank you.
Like most people, I didn't even think about caregiving until my father was diagnosed with cancer. My dad was somebody who I idolized. I used to dress up like him when I was a kid in kindergarten and get made fun of because I wanted to wear like a suit and a tie. And then to go from that to giving him a bath is quite a traumatic thing.
Everyone has a care story. Caring for our families is the most important and invisible work that we will ever do.
Do you think we look alike? Here you go.
Doesn't matter who you are, where you live, what you do, where you come from, you need care.
How you feeling this morning? You good?
And we have this invisible army who are essentially holding us all up as families and therefore holding the entire economy up.
Let me pat dry your face.
People are doing everything they can and more, and it's simply not sufficient because we need to have a recognition that care is a public good.
So my dad is actually a medically retired Navy SEAL. And now he's like helping me just get stronger.
I'm here caring for 2 sick people, which is definitely harder than anything I've ever done in my life.
There's just this simmering crisis. Everyone is burning out, whether it's the care worker or the family member. Everyone is under extreme duress.
I have reintroduced a credit for caring bill. It is for those that are caring for their loved ones.
We're trapped in a caregiving crisis, within an economic crisis, within a healthcare crisis. I want to change the paradigm.
Now we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to support all of our families and our caregivers too.
It really is up to us. All of us can help raise the banner for caregivers. That's why I'm excited to partner with WIDA and produce this documentary. Together, with your help, we can make a difference.
My grandmother was the first person to really elevate caregiving to the point of being a national discussion.
I'm very pleased to be here this afternoon to speak about caregiving, an issue that is very important to me. It's been part of my life since I was 12 years old.
She knows exactly what that life is like. She knows the needs of that. She knows the stress. She knows the difficulty. And she definitely knows the lack of support.
Mr. Chairman, there are only 4 kinds of people in the world. Those who have been caregivers, those who currently are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregiving. That's all of us.
That was her message. Caregiving will touch every person at some point in their life. And I've already been all for her. My mom's mother was a big part of our life. She was as involved as you would hope a grandma would be. But when I was about to start 9th grade, She had her stroke. Caregiving became a full-time responsibility for the whole family. The toll it took on our family was real. Taking care of a loved one. Something that we do out of love, something we could do that we do out of need and necessity, but it is hard and it's lonely and the resources just aren't there. Now I have a 6th grader, Charlie, and I have a kindergartner, Jonathan. When Jonathan was 3 months old, we were changing his diaper, and instead of what you would normally expect for a diaper, we saw blood. Charlie was 6, and we tried very hard to make sure that Charlie knew that he was a loved member of the family. But every single day was consumed around Jonathan and consumed around Jonathan's care. Charlie's going through what I went through and what my grandmother went through, learning that caregiving is a necessary part of a loving family. When Jonathan got better, it took Charlie and Jonathan down to see my grandparents. Jonathan was racing up and down their living room in his little Razor scooter, and she thought it was the greatest thing that she'd ever seen, all the way through to the very end of her life and through the deepest parts of her dementia. She still had that memory. So that was a lovely gift that Jonathan gave her at the end. I did not know that my grandmother was such a champion for caregivers until I was able to step away from the crisis at my own house. When Grandpa was running for governor in the late 60s, early 70s, my grandmother, she heard stories all over Georgia of single mothers, single fathers, taking care of elderly, aging parents, taking care of sick children, taking care of a household full of young children with their own needs at the same time. And Rosa knew exactly what that household looked like. And she knew that there were things the government could do to help people that are in such dire needs. When my grandfather won the race, then she sought out to change things for the better for family caregivers. They were a team on everything that they did. One of the main focuses of my grandmother's life is to find people that were invisible and make them visible. My grandmother always wanted to make sure that people who are caregivers are heard and are celebrated. We cannot ignore the needs of the caregiver.
Good morning. It's such an honor to be here with you all today. My name is Wendy Nuggle. As Tom said, I'm the editor-in-chief of People magazine. I am a caregiver to 2 teenagers and a 79-year-old mother with Alzheimer's. And I am blessed to be here with Joshua Carter here today, the founder of VEO IBD in honor of his son, and someone who is intimately involved with the Rosalind Carter Institute, a very frontline organization, as you all know, about caregiving. I thought I would just start off. Your grandfather, President Jimmy Carter, obviously just celebrated his 100th birthday. Yes. I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about how he's doing and how the family's doing.
Well, he's 100. We had a great celebration of his birthday. We went to go and see him on the 1st. Before that, we had a celebration at the Fox Theater. We had a huge concert, and there were, a lot of his family was able to be there. We had a lot of people celebrating, all of Atlanta celebrating my grandfather. But on his actual birthday, we went down to see him. It was my family, a lot of my cousins. He had a house full of his kids, his grandkids, and his great-grandkids. And when we brought out this 100th birthday cake for him, my son, my niece, and another cousin of mine blew out all of his candles for him. So he's sitting there next to his six-year-old grandchildren blowing out the candle. It was a big celebration of his family, and we wanted to be there and, just kind of remind him, this is what you built.
It has been an incredible legacy that your grandfather and grandmother have built. Your family has really worked together to care for him. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you built that patchwork, so to speak, to make sure he had the best care possible.
He has professional caregivers that are taking care of him and my grandmother through the end of her life as well. But we always have a family member that's in the house with him. And the majority of the caregiving responsibilities probably falls on my Uncle Chip. He's been doing it the longest, Chip and his wife Becky. They're there often. He was there probably the longest. But my Aunt Amy and my dad Jeff went down there a lot to go and help, so it was the four of them trading off for a long time. Now my dad, unfortunately, has had to step back from his role as being a family caregiver for my grandfather because he has Parkinson's. And he's still able to drive, but drive around town, driving 2 hours is a lot. We still go down there when he can. I've driven him down there when we can. But I'm a caregiver for him, and he's a caregiver for my grandfather. So just because you're one doesn't mean you can't be another. It's just a story of what we do.
And I think that exemplifies how difficult caregiving can be, because there's no easy path to make sure our family members have the best care. And this is something that First Lady Rosalind Carter had really pioneered to try to make this a national conversation. And I'm wondering if you could speak just a little bit about what her experience was like and how, from her perspective, she learned very early on the strain that could happen with caregiving.
Yeah, when she said in the video that she was 12 when she started caregiving because her dad got sick with leukemia, and then he died when she was 13. And then at 14, her grandmother died, and her grandfather moved into their house. This is a small, one-floor, small house in rural South Georgia. And she's the oldest of 4 kids, 13, 14 years old, trying to help a single mother take care of a family, raise a family, and take care of a grandfather. Now, when she was doing that, she never thought of it as caregiving. She didn't think, oh, I'm a caregiver, this is my role now. Instead, what she thought was, this is family, this is what I do, and then she also thought that my childhood's over. And it was so hard for her that she had a secret spot in the woods that she would go when she knew no one could find her, and she would go and cry when it just became overwhelming. And she felt like she was inadequate, she felt she wasn't doing enough. And she's putting all this on herself at 14. And that was how she spent her teenage years until she went off and married my grandfather. She was a caregiver, and never thought of that as the word until she started campaigning and she saw, wait a minute, my story is not unique. It's my own personal story, but this story is repeated in families all over the state and later all over the country.
And it's actually something that was repeated on the maternal side of your family. As we saw in the video, your maternal grandmother had a stroke when you were entering high school, and it's something that you witnessed very much firsthand of what it was like to care for her in your family home. Could you talk about how that shaped your own experience, especially at such a young age?
Yeah, I was in 9th grade, or going into 9th grade, and my grandmother was up at our house to celebrate that, hey, her first grandkid's going to high school. It was just a normal grandma coming up type dinner. And there at dinner, she had a stroke. And she started calling out for her mom, and I never even met her mom. It was terrifying. I remember the ambulance drove by the house. I ran out of the house bare feet. We had gravel driveway. Ran all the way up the driveway to flag down the ambulance and have them come back to pick her up. They got to her quickly, but it wasn't fast enough. And from that moment on, she was not able to form a long-term memory. Her memory was stuck at the last 5 minutes for the rest of her life. And it's really difficult to function when you can't remember more than 5 minutes. Just like the normal things of, hey, what did I eat? Did I take my medicine? You know, I didn't take my medicine. Take some more. Did I take my medicine? Take some more. It's a disaster. So after she got out of the hospital, she needed long-term care. And she was still kind of herself for a little bit. So she was in a memory care facility, assisted living, that was right down the street from our house. It was very close, kind of by necessity. We had to. We were the caregivers. But we could take her out to go and eat and still have that sort of interaction, but then later we couldn't. But the majority of the caregiving responsibilities fell on my mom. And that was making sure she's okay, making sure she had a professional caregiver, making sure her medication is right, taking her to the doctors, managing her entire care, taking on her entire agency. And caregiving happens one of two ways. You kind of slow roll into it. Like I mentioned, my dad has Parkinson's. He's still independent, but we know that Parkinson's is a one-way street, so we're preparing for that. In fact, after this, I'm going to take him to his neurologist. And he doesn't need me to be there now, but I don't want my first time that I'm meeting with his doctors to be when he's not able to be involved in his care. So we're getting that in early. But the other thing is the day your life changes. Like when my grandmother had her stroke, and we were just thrown into it. And it took a massive toll. I remember one of the hardest times is during my senior high school exams. I had a very difficult and notorious in the school world history teacher. And I spent the night before that exam on the floor of her room because the caregiver couldn't get there. And I was taking care of my grandmother and making sure that she didn't fall, she didn't hurt herself, that she didn't miss her medication, that she wasn't scared. And then I got up that morning and took my final exam for world history, and it was a surreal moment of helping my grandmother while I'm trying to be a normal kid going through high school. So that took an enormous toll.
And you've also been in a unique situation where not only in caring for grandparents, but in caring for your son, yes, who has had very intense medical issues. And based on that experience, how do you define caregiving? You know, we're talking about a word that really wasn't even a part of our lexicon until your grandmother, made it a part of her cornerstone identity and establishing the institute. So when you're sitting in that very difficult part, sandwich generation completely, how do you define this issue?
It's been a major challenge to define caregiving. Because there's 100 million American stories, so there's 100 million stories. There's 100 million definitions of what caregiving is. One of the challenges that we have is distinguishing it from parenting. And I certainly don't want to say anything negative about or minimize the struggles of parenting. I think it's the closest to reincarnation that we get to experience. My wife and I were married for 7 years before we had our first kid, and I cannot remember what those newlyweds thought of free time or how they spent their money. That young man still has all his clothes in my closet, and I have no idea who he was anymore. But when I take on parenting, it's a challenge. But when you add the other element of caregiving, usually there's some sort of medical issue. There's some ailment, there's some disability, there's some challenge that if you were to rewrite your story, if you had freedom to rewrite the story that you had, you'd probably leave that part out. I would still have my 2 kids, but Jonathan would not have very early onset inflammatory bowel disease. It's the toddler's version of Crohn's disease, except it's more aggressive and more difficult to treat. It was a challenge that nearly broke us. So but caregiving comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of helping support your family. But it's not just family, like my grandmother thought initially. There is an additive piece there that creates a challenge that's over and above what you would like. You know, I'm going to hang out with my dad. I'm going to take my dad to go to his neurologist soon. And I would love to hang out with my dad. I mean, we're going to go, and it's building our relationship. I'm picking him up. We're driving up to his neurologist. And the whole time we're in the car, we're talking about anything from politics to kids to, you know, model trains, you know, whatever. And I would like to have that, but I would just rather be driving to go and get tacos instead of going to the neurologist. But it does give me that. And in fact, Chip, who was my uncle taking care of my grandfather, he said that as hard as everything is, that relationship that he is able to forge as a caregiver to my grandfather kind of broke them out of the parent-son relationship. And he said, now I can say that my dad is my friend. So it's certainly something that is a wholesome, powerful thing we can do for our families that I wouldn't take away, but it is a challenge.
And that's an incredible gift. And as you said, this experience is universal, you know, and your grandmother laid it out that there are only 4 kinds of people and they're all going to be caregivers or cared for. Your family, because of being on the front lines of this, you've been able to kind of see policy issues in a different light. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if there are policy changes that you would like to see happen today that would help caregivers, and if there's policies that you've seen across the globe that you think are incredibly effective that we could all learn from and perhaps adopt.
Well, one of the things that we have that we see when we look around the globe and see what other countries do for caregivers is a lot of countries help pay for family caregivers, and that is a very big benefit for families that are dealing with it, but also it's a cost-effective solution because the alternative is institutionalized care, and that is extremely cost-prohibitive for a lot of families. So there's that. And for policy, besides, you know, if I could get universal health care in the United States like this, I would be able to, but that's not a tomorrow thing. But one thing that would be a tomorrow thing is my grandmother, and now I am advocating for President Biden to open the Office of Caregiver Health so that he has an office focused on this issue. And that could happen tomorrow if he wanted to.
And you mentioned that your father has Parkinson's disease. As you know that you will be a caregiver many years into the future, is there anything that you hope will be different? And also, is there any advice that you would give to somebody who might be looking at a future of caregiving?
Well, I'm really inspired by the medical advances that we've made for my dad. I would say that if someone is getting into a caregiver role, it's going to be hard, it's going to be challenging, it may be the most challenging thing you ever do, but you should know that you're not alone. You're not doing this alone. It feels very isolating, but it's really not. You have a community behind you, and everybody that you know has a caregiving story. So when I've opened up with my caregiving story with my dad and with my son and with my grandfather, I hear everybody else's caregiver story, and it's a truly universal thing. So that's what I want people to know, that you're not alone.
And we've talked today about it's also a day of celebration, and you know, as draining and difficult as caregiving can sometimes be, it can be very rewarding. And I'm wondering if there is a particular moment or story in your life that you hold on to and that really helps keep you going.
Well, I mentioned the story of my son in the video of my son going through my grandmother's house, but he had this little razor scooter, and he would zoom back and forth in the living room. They have a flat, paved living room, and and he would get in there with his razor scooter. He would put his foot way over his head and just balance on one foot, and he would scoot, and it was very dramatic looking if you didn't know how wild and crazy my son was. But that moment of my grandmother, even through all of her dementia, and as bad as it got there towards the end, having that be the one thing that she remembered was the biggest gift that Jonathan gave me.
Is there anything that you hope that your grandfather, President Carter, remembers?
About Jonathan?
Or just about your family coming together through all of this?
I think that another way that I've answered that question recently, because it's been a week, is my people ask, what does he want for his 100th birthday? And the thing he wanted, I believe he got, which was he was surrounded by family. He was told that he was loved. He knew that he was loved. And, despite all the caregiving needs that he has, he's still my grandpa, and he's still able to have a whole house full of people that loved him, and that was a gift.
I'm sure he'd be very proud. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike, Tom, and Wendy. And thank you, Josh, for such a heartfelt dialogue. We deeply appreciate you sharing your personal experiences as a caregiver. Your candid insights have given us a powerful glimpse into the challenges and rewards of this role, touching all of us here today. We also want to acknowledge your grandparents' remarkable legacy. Your grandfather's decades of humanitarian work after leaving the White House, promoting human rights and working to alleviate poverty, serve as an inspiring example of how older persons can continue to make significant contributions to society. Equally important is your grandmother's, Rosalind, tireless advocacy for caregivers, bringing much-needed attention to their critical role and challenges. It's clear that you, Josh, are carrying forward this family tradition of compassion and advocacy. We are also honored to wish Jimmy Carter, the first centenarian former president in the history of the United States, a belated 100th birthday. Also, I would like to congratulate everyone involved in the premiere of the first clip from the documentary Caregiving here at the International Day. This glimpse into the documentary shines a much-needed spotlight in the critical role of caregivers, and we eagerly look forward to the full documentary launch next year. Having someone like Bradley Cooper promote this project is crucial. His involvement not only brings greater visibility to this important topic, but also helps galvanize broader political and public attention. Now, as we transition to another special part of the program, I'm excited to introduce the United Nations commemorative stamps for the International Day of Older Persons, themed Aging for All Ages. These stamps symbolize our shared commitment to reinforcing the message that aging is a universal experience that affects us all, highlighting the importance of inclusivity across all age groups. It is my pleasure to invite Chris Sharp, the artist who designed the stamps. Chris, the floor is yours.
Hello. First, I'd like to thank the UNPA and DESA for inviting me to give this talk at this event. As you know, my name is Chris Sharp. I'm an illustrator. I've been an illustrator since 1987. And over the years, I've worked on a plethora of images, including this set of stamps, which I'm presenting today. I also think is an important topic and dear to my heart. In fact, I am over 60 and am fortunate to have family members and friends, older family members and friends, whom I believe contribute considerably to our society. So as such, I'm proud to showcase and launch of the first ever commemorative stamps for the UN International Day of Older Persons. So before I walk through this, I'd like to acknowledge the help of Rory Katz and Sergio Baradat, and importantly, DESA. So So let's see, beginning with the second image on the left, I'd just like to briefly describe what this is. On one hand, we have a dual narrative of aging. So we have, on one hand, an older doctor symbolizing the wealth and of lived experiences and expertise. And of course, on the other hand, we have a patient that represents those who require more care and support as they age. The middle stamp showcases an older woman actively engaged in agriculture. It represents the continued productivity, valuable contributions of older people to our food systems and rural economies. In addition, it also acknowledges the unique contribution and challenges faced by older women whose work often goes unrecognized, particularly in those informal workforce. And last, we have the couple dancing, which highlights the importance of social engagement, physical activity, and enjoyment of life as one ages. So I will be I'll be signing stamps downstairs at the stamp counter after this event. If anyone wants to get a signed set, that is on the ground concourse, the General Assembly building next to the gift shop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris, for sharing your artistic vision behind the commemorative stamps. We encourage the participants to consider purchasing their stamp sets to celebrate this initiative. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Amal Abu Rafeh, the chief of the program on aging at DESA, to the lectern to present the next segment, the presentation of the Titchfield report entitled Improving the Visibility of Older Persons in Global Statistics. Amal?
Thank you so much, Ariana. This segment, to me, is about partnerships. We all know what it takes to build them: mutual interest, clear communication, and meaningful engagements. But recent developments have given me a chance to reflect on this. And I want to take this opportunity to share with you the secret behind our team's long-standing partnerships. We set a good intention from the start. This intention weaves through all the other elements of partnership building that we're familiar with. We don't dominate the space, we create value for everyone involved, and we nurture mutual trust. And while I have the pleasure to present the next speaker, I stand here shoulder to shoulder with other UN colleagues that have worked with me in supporting the Titchfield Group. Julia Ferre from the Program on Aging, Caroline Schmidt from DESA Population, Ritu Sedana, thank you, from WHO in Geneva, Edward Jongstra from UNFPA based in Istanbul, Serge Capto from UNDP, Papa Sek from UN Women, and we've worked very closely with stakeholders, and I want to give a shout out to Help Age International, Verity McGivern, Aidan Timlin, and their former colleague Alex Minovitz, as well as ARP for the engagement of the former director of the International Office, Erica Dar. And Commissioner, if you'll excuse me, I'm not a native New Yorker. My accent's going to be really off as a first-generation New Yorker. But in this duty station, we walk the talk. So the partnership comes to life with National Statistical Office UK joining us. So please join me in a warm welcome to Ed Morgan from UK NSO to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mal. My name's Edward Morgan. I'm a demographer at the Office for National Statistics in the United Kingdom. And on behalf of the Titchfield City Group on Aging, it gives me my great pleasure to present this report, Improving the Visibility of Older Persons in Global Statistics. And I'm very happy to share with you the findings of this report today. The full report can be found on the UN Statistics website and can be accessed by scanning that QR code. Like with any good statistical analysis, we start with an analytical framework. And this analytical framework includes our 5 key policy priority indicators, focusing on SDG data relating to aging and older persons. So these include health and care. So these include health conditions, medical care for both physical and mental health, and social care. It includes financial security. So this includes employment opportunities, poverty and social protections. It includes violence, abuse, and safety. So this is crime and discrimination, fundamentally. It includes participation. So this includes education, skills, unpaid work. And in total, we identified 56 SDG indicators relevant to the 5 selected policy priorities for ageing and older persons. So in terms of our analytical approach here, we examined the 56 SDG indicators across those 5 policy priorities using 3 main methods. Firstly, we conducted a review of the contributions from all UN member states to the UN Global SDG database. Secondly, we surveyed 13 countries representing a balanced distribution of higher and lower income countries. And thirdly, my team conducted qualitative case studies with 3 countries, Mexico, Mongolia, and the United Kingdom, through video interviews. So what did we find? So through our global data review, what we found is that data of any kind, whether it was age disaggregated or not, was available for 55 out of the 56 indicators for any country around the world. And there was just one indicator where no country had any data available at all, and that was non-partner sexual violence. For age disaggregated data, so this is data broken down by the different age groups, we found that data was available for only 16 of the 56 indicators for at least one country, so that's 29% of all the indicators. No country reported age disaggregated data for the remaining 40 SDG indicators. So we have no distinction by any age group by age for 40 of those 56 indicators. In terms of the highest age disaggregation data available was for health and care, where we had 47%, and the lowest was for enabling environments, where none of those indicators had any sort of age disaggregation at all. So a really huge gap in our data availability for older persons. Moving on to our survey, what we found was there was a real disparity in data collection capabilities between higher and lower middle-income countries, with much higher data availability for high-income countries. One notable exception to this is the low-income category, which, by the way, only included one country, and that was Uganda, which reported high data availability. And I know it's a small sample size, so we can't draw any particular conclusions from just one country. But what it does demonstrate is that income is not the only factor when it comes to the collection of age disaggregated data. What our survey also found is that data was available for 69% of the 56 indicators. However, when we start considering age disaggregated data, that figure drops to just 1/3. So again, a huge number of gaps here in our global data availability that we have to us. Moving on to our case studies now. So some of the more positive findings were that was that SDG data collection amongst our national statistical offices had been absolutely prioritised by governments. They all feel it was important, and they'd really put a lot of effort in this. But all three of those NSOs all reported really challenging resource constraints with their own teams and other data suppliers. Whether this is a possible post-COVID effect regarding public sector finances or not, I don't know. But what we find is that SDG reporting is an important job, but a very time-consuming job. I'll just go straight to our recommendations now. So where do we go from here? So based on our research and our assessment of the global situation, we can make 5 recommendations for you today. Firstly, leverage diverse data sources. Expand the use of administrative registers and census data so we can fill critical data gaps and provide more detailed insights into older populations. Secondly, standardized data collection. Harmonized definitions and methodologies across countries is essential for consistent, reliable, and comparative age disaggregated data. Thirdly, revise and enhance surveys. Modify existing example surveys will ensure that older age groups are accurately represented, capturing a fuller spectrum of their needs and experiences. Fourthly, invest in national statistical systems. Increased financial and technical support is absolutely crucial for strengthening the infrastructure needed to produce high-quality disaggregated data by age. Fifthly and lastly, foster global collaboration. International partnerships and mutual learning will enhance data comparability and accessibility, supporting inclusive SDG implementation. By taking action on all those ambitious recommendations, we are much more likely to have the right data to develop the best policies to properly serve our growing older population. And in that spirit, I commend this report and its findings to you in this chamber today. Thank you.
Well, hello again. As we continue our celebration of the United Nations International Day of the Older Persons, I am really very pleased to introduce our panel discussion segment. I invite our moderator, John Wilmoth, Director of Population Division at DESA, and the panel members to please take your seats at the podium at this time. This discussion is crucial as we explore key themes that impact care support systems for older persons worldwide. The panel will explore the essential roles of national policies, legislation, family, and community in upholding the dignity, needs, and privacy of older persons, while safeguarding their right to make decisions about their care and their quality of life. It will also highlight the innovative care and support systems, particularly those living with conditions such as dementia, and advocate for specialized caregiving training with a focus on geriatrics. Additionally, the panel will recognize the contributions of both unpaid and professional caregivers, while addressing the unique challenges of informal caregivers that they face, especially women, and promoting supportive policies that support them in balancing their responsibilities. I look forward to the insights that are going to emerge today from this panel. I want to encourage everyone to actively participate in this Q&A session. You'll find index cards in your folders, so you can submit questions. There are going to be volunteers that will be roaming the room, and just hold up that index card and they'll grab it. And as a reminder, there are not going to be any microphones for that Q&A session, so it's really essential that you use the cards that are provided. So I want to thank you all very much, and let's get started.
Thank you. Welcome to everyone. As you all know, population aging is one of the defining characteristics of today's world. It's one of two major consequences of the demographic transition towards longer lives and smaller families that the whole world is going through. And all countries need to anticipate that their populations will be larger than they have been in the past and much older. And the issue of population aging, it's not really a problem. First of all, we often hear it addressed in this way and presented as a problem, but I think in the UN we often try to remind people that it is in fact a sign of human success. The increase of the human lifespan is one of the greatest accomplishments of all time, and aging is one consequence of that, an aged population and a life experience of aging. It raises various questions, including issues around care and support. And a lot of work has been done in this area in recent years, and some of it attempts to quantify the economic contribution of all that unpaid care and housework that people do. And it's been found that in some large economies, including the United States, Italy, Germany, India, and Vietnam, if you take account of all of the unpaid care and housework that is taking place and include that in the GDP per capita, or the GDP of the economy would increase by more than a third in those countries. So it's really quite a remarkable part of the work that's going on and the total work that people are doing. And we need to find better ways to recognize it and account for it and compensate it. So with that introduction, I will turn to the panel, each of whom has 7 minutes to make a short presentation, and then we will have a question and answer session following that. So I turn first to Peter Lloyd Sherlock, who is a professor in social policy, professor of gerontology and global health at the University of Northumbria in the United Kingdom. He's held positions at the World Health Organization and the UK Department of International Development. And he will be speaking to us on care and support systems for older persons, focusing on low and middle income countries. Professor Lloyd Sherlock, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I cannot overstate the urgency for societies and governments, especially low and middle income countries, to start taking robust, concerted measures to address this issue. This means acting now to end denial. I believe the challenges created by population aging, especially for low and middle income countries, will be of a similar magnitude to those posed by climate change, and so is the denial. For all countries, we already know the numbers of people who will reach old age in 10, 20, 30 years from now. In Japan, about 30% of the population is now aged 65 or over. Some friends of mine in low and middle income countries think this is like a science fiction scenario, joking, we'll probably colonize Mars before this happens where they live. Yet, in many of these countries, the numbers of older people will nearly treble over the next generation. I used to avoid alarmism, and I agree we shouldn't talk about the problem of aging, because this can promote negative attitudes towards later life. It can promote ageism. But, on the other hand, the danger of complacency is also very great. In my country, the United Kingdom, where about 20% of people are currently aged 65 or more, our health and care systems are absolutely buckling under the strain. Why? Because proper action was not taken soon enough. And if low and middle income countries don't learn from these mistakes, achieving health for all will remain an impossible dream, as will many of the other SDG targets. We all like to play down the needs most of us will face when we get older. 20 years from now, I want to be like the guy on the bike here in the yellow jacket. And if I'm lucky, maybe I will. Individuals and governments and the private sector can do a lot to promote healthy aging. And this must be part of the current action I'm calling for. But let's not confuse optimism with denial. Generally, the health of older populations in low and middle-income countries is not improving, especially for the poor. I took this picture of the cyclist a couple of days ago in Brazil. It's part of a public health campaign in that Brazilian city. And as you can see, the cyclist is male, white, wealthy, perfect teeth, elite. But is this the realistic reality of old age facing most people in low and middle-income countries? I don't think it is. And so the discourse of healthy aging can sometimes be a very elitist discourse, and we have to be careful about that. And almost everyone, even this happy cyclist, will almost definitely face a period, perhaps months or even years, of illness and care need toward the end of their lives. But of course, we will be fine because our loving families, like the wonderful Carter family, will take care of us. As somebody from a high-income country, I'm often told how strong family bonds are in low and middle-income countries, and indeed they are, and that these will continue to meet the health and care needs of all, old and young. Unfortunately, wrong slide. Unfortunately, this can be an excuse for government inaction, while growing numbers of family carers, mainly women, are left to shoulder ever-growing burdens of care responsibility without support from the state. Governments must stop denying that this is just a family issue, a private responsibility, without any need for public action on a grand scale. And we must not deny the scale, the massive scale of the consequences of not taking action now. A growing gender injustice on a grand scale, this invisible army. The unnecessary suffering of millions, perhaps one day billions of older people that could be relatively easily averted. And increasingly overwhelmed health and social care systems. Yet, rather than with gloom and doom, we can fight the denial in positive ways. There are really many quite simple and affordable things that can make a big difference. Here are just a few examples. Most older people don't drink enough, and this often causes serious health issues. Many use medications inappropriately. Poor family homes, especially in low and middle-income countries, are often high-risk settings for falls and could be easily adapted. And we shouldn't underestimate the power of social prescribing, social interaction. In all countries, loneliness and isolation are indirectly one of the biggest killers of older people. None of these things require expensive specialist hospital care or nursing homes. All are within our reach. And there are other grounds for hope, like inspiring actions already being taken by some countries. There are not many of these, and they're often quite small, but they provide evidence and guidance about what can and must be done on a far greater scale. I've had the privilege of being involved with one such intervention in Brazil, Programa Maior Cuidado, which provides trained family care support to people living in the country's poorest and most vulnerable neighborhoods. We found that it works, is highly cost-effective, truly improves the lives of older people and their family carers, and reduces unnecessary hospital stays. And the politicians are starting to get it. From just one city, this scheme is now being scaled up across Brazil. Just this week, the city of Salvador committed to trebling its size over the next few months. And so, this story shows what can be done and what has to be done, not in 5 years' time, but right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Lloyd-Sherlock. We turn now to Shireen Hussain. Shireen is a professor of health and social care policy at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in the United Kingdom. With a background in medical demography, statistics, and computer science. She is internationally recognized for her expertise in aging and long-term care and advises governments and international organizations. She will be speaking to us on the needs and contributions of an aging population in the Middle East and North Africa region.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today on this significant occasion as we celebrate the International Day of Older Persons. Today, we recognize not only the invaluable contribution of older people, but also the collective responsibility we all share to ensure their dignity, well-being, and full integration into society. The Middle East and North Africa region, or MENA region, is rich in diverse cultures and histories, where respect for older generations is deeply ingrained. Collective societies in this region uphold strong values that honor the dignity of older persons. However, older people in the MENA region are disproportionately affected by external shocks, such as wars and conflicts, which disrupt healthcare and care infrastructures. Older people in particular face difficulties in migrating from danger zones. Additionally, climate change, with more frequent extreme weather events, places frail older individuals at greater risk. Amidst these challenges, rapid demographic shifts further strain traditional protective norms, creating tensions over resources and transforming societal roles. We must celebrate the increased longevity at birth and at 60 across the region, a testament to advancement in healthcare and living standards. However, this demographic transition is happening at an unprecedented speed, with some countries expected to undergo this change in just 12 years, a process that took Europe 75 years on average. The rapid increase in life expectancy at age 60 has resulted in significant mismatch between individuals' perceptions of longevity and their actual lifespan. Many of today's older persons grew up as young adults during a time when life expectancy was particularly low, and they did not expect to live as long past the age of 60. This lack of preparedness extends beyond their material needs. It also affects their perception and imagination of what life beyond 60 could look like. As a result, there is an urgent need to support older people in adjusting to this new reality, providing resources for physical health, financial security, and fostering a more positive outlook on longevity. Additionally, the rapid and swift change underscores the urgency for quick policy development and practical implementation. The window for action is considerably short in policy terms. It is vital for governments and policymakers to act swiftly to ensure the region is equipped to meet the needs of its aging populations. It is important to note that not all years gained are healthy years. While life expectancy is rising, the number of years lived in good health is not increasing at the same rate, particularly among women. Data from across the MENA region reveals disparities in healthy life expectancy, underscoring the need for targeting intervention that focuses on healthy longevity. This issue cuts across countries of different socioeconomic status, demonstrating that more effort is needed to address health inequalities. Given the unique population structure of the region, with a significant proportion of younger people, situated within a cultural context of respect for older generations, we must adopt a life course approach to policy development. The youth of today are the older persons of tomorrow. It is crucial to recognize the interconnectivity across generations and the reciprocal flow of support. Failure to address these issues adequately may lead to intergenerational tension and negative perceptions of aging. We stand at a pivotal moment. How we respond to this accelerated aging process will determine the quality of life for millions of older persons in the region. It is vital to mainstream aging into all areas of policy, whether education, healthcare, or the economy, to create truly inclusive and sustainable outcomes. Beyond health, social connections must be prioritized. Older generations in the MENA region report weaker social connection and ties compared to their European counterparts, which heightens feelings of isolation. Strengthening these bonds through both family and formal care systems ensure that older people continue to feel valued and integrated into society. To address these challenges, we must move beyond reliance on traditional family support systems and establish robust formal care services. This not only presents an economic opportunities for younger generations, creating jobs and reducing the informal caregiving burden, but it also empowers older adults to live with dignity, independence, and choice. Encouragingly, there are signs of progress. The League of Arab States has developed an aging strategy, and several countries such as Oman and Saudi Arabia have implemented national strategies to support their older population. Egypt, too, is discussing a new law for older persons. These initiatives must be accelerated and expanded across the region to ensure that no country is left behind. The urgency of action cannot be overstated. The window for proactive measures is closing. We must rethink traditional protective norms, balance family and formal support systems, and invest intergenerationally. By investing in better aging practice today, we are ensuring a brighter future for all generations, because the youth of today are the older persons of tomorrow. The time to act is now. Collective efforts from government, civil societies, and international organizations are needed to ensure that aging population in the MENA region are not only supported, but also respected and celebrated for their invaluable contribution. In conclusion, let us all commit to taking these necessary steps through policy innovation, strategic investment, and inclusive social efforts, so that older persons can live with dignity, purpose, and security. Together, we can create a future where aging is embraced, valued, and prepared for, both for the current and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hussein. And we turn now to Elizabeth Heltzner. Elizabeth is an associate professor and interim chair in the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics at the State University of New York, Downstate Health Sciences University School of Public Health, and the Brooklyn Initiative to Develop Geriatrics Education. That's quite an affiliation. Professor Heltzner is a chronic disease epidemiologist who specializes in the study of age-related conditions. Her primary research focus is age-related hearing loss, and she has explored many potential contributors to hearing loss in older age, including diabetes, bone density, vascular health, and demographic, genetic, behavioral, and environmental factors. Professor Heltzner, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here today to talk about approaches to supporting the growing care economy for older persons by focusing on workforce development. Others have already outlined the rapidly growing population of older persons worldwide and the increasing need for support systems. The U.S. Institute of Medicine, an independent nonprofit that works to inform policymakers and the public, highlighted in their report that we haven't created an adequate workforce to handle the needs of the aging population. And the only way we can really handle the public health crisis that we're facing is through educational and policy initiatives that raise the geriatrics health literacy of all health professionals and allied health professionals, including social services. It's important to remember that the needs of older adults are heterogeneous. While they, of course, have increasing needs for healthcare and caregiving, they also need social services to support their aspirations and continued personal development in later life. There's a crucial need to provide geriatrics-focused education to the network of care providers who will support older adults and family caregivers so that age-friendly care can be provided across the health and social services sectors. We need to remember that the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease and related dementia is on the rise. According to the World Health Organization, as of 2023, more than 55 million people worldwide have dementia, and more than 60% of these live in low and middle income countries. This number, while already quite striking, is projected to nearly triple by 2060. Thus, we must be prepared to meet the physical, psychological, and emotional needs of adults with dementia, including helping them to maintain autonomy and dignity for as long as possible. And last, I'd like to kind of return to what Dr. Morgan mentioned in his talk, and that is that as an epidemiologist, I have seen that older adults are often excluded from public health research. And when they are included, they're considered as a broad category, such as 60 and older or 65 and older. We need more granular data to describe the needs of adults in all phases of late adulthood to better inform evidence-based policymaking. The Institute for Healthcare Improvement developed the Age-Friendly Health Systems Initiative, which focuses on evidence-based practices that use what they call the 4Ms framework. This framework includes considering what matters to older adults, such as care preferences and health and life goals. It also includes medication, mentation, including whether a person has dementia or mental health issues, and mobility. To be recognized as an age-friendly health system, institutions must develop and implement plans to address the 4Ms in their older adult patients. The goal here is that all workers across the healthcare space should be empowered to deliver age-friendly care. In the United States, the Health Resources and Services Administration provides funding for dedicated geriatrics workforce enhancement programs, and that's really what I'm here to talk about. In this cycle, HRSA awarded over $206 million to 42 institutions to educate and train the healthcare and supportive care workforces to care for older people. These programs work by building reciprocal partnerships with healthcare sites, including nursing homes and hospitals, and also with community-based organizations, so that we can transform clinical training environments into integrated care sites that are age and dementia friendly. GWEP programs provide interprofessional geriatrics training to medical students, allied health students, public health students, physicians in training, direct care workers, faculty, and preceptors. The programs are centered on lower resource areas of the United States, including those serving indigenous populations and in underserved urban and rural areas. The intention of these is that participants, after they've graduated from the program, will continue on working in these underserved areas. So that you can get a better idea of one of these geriatrics workforce enhancement programs in action, I want to talk about our experience at SUNY Downstate Health Sciences University under the direction of Dr. Michael Reinhardt. And I'll point out that SUNY Downstate is a medical-focused institution, health services institution. So what our program does, we take a multi-pronged approach. We offer regular didactics in geriatrics and Alzheimer's disease across the curricula of the university, not just for medical students, but for all of the colleges. We also offer a dedicated 5-course advanced certificate program in public health geriatrics. And we also have a public health geriatrics internship program that provides opportunities for students to gain experience in health education for older adults and also to develop research skills. We partner with community organizations to provide public-facing educational workshops and lectures to older adult populations, and we also provide training to existing clinicians and care workers to help advance age-friendly care. We support practicing clinicians also by hosting a regular case conference series called Project ECHO, in which complex cases are presented, and it's attended by providers, faculty, and students. So for next steps, we are expanding our services to include age-friendly wellness clinics that will serve older adults, both normal older adults and also those with dementia. and late life mental health problems. Our program also is advancing age-friendly health systems initiatives in long-term care settings, and we have developed partnerships with GWEP programs in Puerto Rico and also the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we're really just getting started. This is really important work, and we're hopeful that programs like this can be replicated in other places across the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Heltzner. We turn now to Kahir Lalji. Kahir is the Provincial Director in Government Relations and Programs of the United Way of British Columbia and the Vice President of the International Longevity Centre of Canada. He was inspired by caring for his grandparents, and Kahir dedicated the last 15 plus years of his life working in the provincial, national, and international NGO space to support the quality of life of equity-seeking groups, always attempting to ensure the representation of traditionally underserved populations. He will be speaking to us today on the right to care. So, Mr. Lalji, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here with my esteemed panelists. I want to start off today by recognizing that I have with me a delegation of Canadian NGOs here in the aging space. A space which I am inherently sympathetic to and a space which is close to my heart. I want to first off acknowledge the hardships that so many older people and their carers are currently facing today. Those who might be isolated by land, language, culture, or otherwise. Those who are living in enduring poverty, those who are disproportionately impacted by climate change, those bearing witness to conflict, those whose rights have been infringed upon, those whose rights have been violated by antiquated systems, those who experience pervasive ageism. At the same token, it's important for us to celebrate the contributions, experience, wisdom, and the foundation set by older people around the world. Regardless of the community in which one lives, your history, our history, will have borne witness to the impact, sacrifice, and insight of generations past. Let's also recognize the selfless service of families, friends, caregivers, and circles of support who are the backbone of our communities. If it was not for the unpaid, informal care provided by so many carers and care providers, our societies would crumble. I'd like to introduce you to my maternal grandmother, the late Sherbanu Abdul Malik Ismail Haji. We've all talked about how we have a care story. My family and I had the honor of being by her side through her journey with vascular dementia. I'd like to share with you some learnings through this process. One, we learned about the importance of community as it relates to right to care. We learned about the need to recognize cultural sensitivities and linguistic familiarity in the provision of care. Things like dress, food, culture, religious norms, traditions, language, they were all integral to her peace, her comfort, her self-esteem, and her quality of life, especially during times of loss. Loss of personhood, loss of identity, loss of capacity, loss of loved ones. We learned that the absence of family and meaningful, relevant intergenerational care led to poorer health outcomes for her. It lowered her quality of life and increased stress factors amongst her immediate circle of support. We experienced how dementia care is a crisis with no clear fix but hope. That there needs to be enhanced respect for care partners, the care workforce, and unpaid carers for those living with dementia. TIPA Snow's positive approach to care, for example, is radically transforming the experience of dementia. We need to do more. We learned, and let today remind us, how imperative it is to address loneliness, an epidemic infiltrating all corners of our world. We were reminded, and through my current work with communities across the world, I continue to be reminded of the urgent need to implement care and support systems that foster meaningful and relevant connection. So what are the issues that need to be addressed? We know older people face systemic and institutional barriers, particularly in vulnerable situations: climate change, migration, internal displacement, poverty, housing, the erosion of family dynamics, the loosening of community bonds. Older people and carers are disproportionately impacted. We also, I think, know that we live mostly in a world of antiquated systems. Rights of older people are neglected. 30 years of reports now require action. To understand the plight of older people and their caregivers, one just needs to turn to the death rates in long-term care homes, the preventable deaths from the heat dome in British Columbia, from malnutrition, from being denied access to health care. One just needs to turn to the financial volatility of older persons, ageist perspectives in the labor force, in fact, all in some of the richest countries in the world. These factors on their own or in any combination fundamentally affect the rights and quality of life of older people and their caregivers. Let's heed what Canada's National Institute of Aging reminded us of, quote, to stop making assumptions that older age leads to poorer performance. The data does not show this to be true, end quote. These assumptions are ageist and oppress older persons and their circles of support. Communities at their core, though, can hone in and mobilize the assets and strengths of older people. I would also suggest we need to unpack the policy implications of an aging world, perhaps even reimagining policy to aspire to standards to respect human rights of people. The aging process knows no boundaries, but it must be embraced, it must be valued, it must be dignified. People of all ages have rights, carers have rights. There are beacons of hope. We need to balance the rhetoric from institutionalization to person-centered community care. This will tighten family and community threads, it is economically prudent, and it promotes dignity. We need to scale effective community-based interventions. We need to eliminate ageism and careism, if you will, the stigma associated with the provision of care. These are pervasive. It is toxic to both the global economy and to world health. We need to spotlight the role of community-based programs and services. These need to be bolstered to provide person-centered, preventative, upstream initiatives like social prescribing, like age and dementia-friendly communities, and mensheds, movements which are growing at a global scale. Bolstering, and I would say protecting these programs, services, and the labor force of civil society, coupled with harnessing the power of community, we can shift this narrative. We can prevent crisis in people, crisis amongst caregivers, crisis in communities. I want to end with a call to action. We need to continue to raise the profile of older persons in global discussions. We live in an aging world. The future will continue to see an aging world. We must ensure older voices are heard and represented. We need to continue to both, one, work on continuing to ensure older people and caregivers are included on social and economic issues, and two, to echo the calls from the International Longevity Center Network that all our work on older persons must be based on human rights, and call for a United Nations Convention on the Rights of Older People and for a working group in Geneva to move this work forward. We need to learn from caregivers and care receivers. We need to continue to raise awareness of the global crisis of care systems and supports. We need to advocate for the diverse contributions, experiences, and needs of caregivers, carers, and recipients of care. We need to secure and protect the dignity of all older persons and carers. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the speakers. We now move into the question and answer segment of this discussion. I was told that I would be given some questions to ask on cards, but that's coming. That's still coming. So in the meantime, I can throw out a few things. First, if I turn to Professor Lloyd Sherlock, could you tell us, from a realistic point of view, what are the policy options for low and middle income countries where we should really focus attention, and how can we use those to reach the most vulnerable social groups?
Simple things, as I said in my talk, things to improve hydration of older people, especially in contexts of climate change and exposure to very high temperatures, which disproportionately affect poor people in the global south. Reducing falls risks in slum environments, looking at those environments not just inside the house but outside the house. Mobility is absolutely impossible for many older people, helping them with medications. And these require partnerships between primary healthcare providers and families. And we also, as a part of that, need to bring health and social services together. In most countries, and sadly in my country, in the United Kingdom, they don't work together, health and social assistance and social services. Programa Maior Cuidado, the program I described in Brazil, is an equal partnership between local health and social care agencies. And I strongly believe that it would not have succeeded in the way that it is had that partnership not been very strong.
It's very interesting. I turn now to Professor Hussein and ask you about this Menara network that I believe you mentioned it in your talk, and can you tell us more about the activities that are aimed at raising awareness and enhancing opportunities to improve healthy aging in the MENA region?
Thank you. It was a pleasure. So the Menara Network, which is a Middle East and North Africa research on aging healthy, was an initiative that has been made feasible by a grant from the UKRI, which connected together researchers, NGOs, policymakers across the region to have a platform to discuss issues of aging and healthy aging in the region, an issue that has been ignored for many years. And because it's happening almost in silence with population growth, it was difficult to initiate the conversation for a number of years. So the Menara activities revolve around three main activities. The first one is to create space for discussions and to create opportunities for these discussions. So in April this year, we run a two-day regional symposium in Cairo where we have invited regional researchers as well as international representatives from the United Nations, from the WHO, and from the World Bank to speak about the opportunities and challenges of aging in the region. On the other one, we provide research. So we have researchers who look into data, who consider the trends, and to also look at the opportunities that are associated with aging, both in terms of long life learning, but also when we create long-term care strategies and policies and long-term care systems, how that creates opportunities for the labor market and create opportunities for healthy longevity for older people. And the last thing, but not least, is to provide a space for older people themselves, their family carers, NGOs to speak. So we use a lot of media, films, voice notes to bring the voices of people and the lives of people into the forefront. The activities have been wonderful, and I think the reception of many organizations have been great. So we're looking forward to collaborate with different organizations, and more recently we're collaborating with some government states who would like to create strategies and implementation of their policies as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was handed a few questions which come from all of you. So I'm going to turn to those now, and I'll direct this at, I guess, whoever wants to answer. This question is about care and support systems for older persons who are dealing with mental illness, but who are otherwise healthy. What kinds of care and support systems are available for such persons who are dealing with mental illness, but otherwise healthy? Who would like to take this? Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think this is a familiar scenario for many of us in our lives. And because I'm sympathetic to the community sector, I'm going to say that the role of community, if resourced and if supported, plays an instrumental role in this. You know, I have had the honor of visiting so many older people in their homes. And this question reminds me of one story. And it was with an elderly lady, and she's giving me permission to share this story, in her 90s, who was had not left her home for over 3 months. She was the primary caretaker for her son in her 70s. And her son in her 70s was severely emotionally fragile. I had the honor to go to visit her, and she lived in a rural community. And when I entered her home, she had spina bifida, so she was bent over. And she had tied wire hangers together in order to get the laundry out of the washing machine. And she had not left her home in 3 months. And we incrementally were able to connect her with the local community-based senior center, who incrementally built rapport and trust with this individual, from calling her once a week to dropping off a hot meal once a week. Ultimately, this trust and rapport was built with her larger community. When I went to visit her 3 weeks later, she actually went to visit her family doctor out in community. 2 years later, to this day, she is teaching yoga classes at the local senior center in her local community. This is the power of community. This is the power of a well-resourced, well-served community.
So I'm going to ask a question to Professor Heltzner, which has to do with the intergenerational aspects of aging. I'd like you to reflect on what are some of the examples of intergenerational learning approaches or experiences that can help support the needs of older adults.
Yes, thank you so much. So this is a really exciting area for us at Downstate. What our plan is to identify age-friendly champions in our partner organizations and then work with them to set up an intergenerational exchange between our health sciences students and older adults in community settings so that there is a discourse back and forth about the problems faced by older adults with the people who will eventually be their care providers. That's one thing. And one other example that I've just recently learned of, which I think is fascinating, at one of the other State University of New York campuses, they actually have built an entire elder care residential facility on the campus, and they are encouraging the older adults who live in that facility to take classes with undergraduates at the school and serve as mentors on projects for the students. So those are just two examples of things that we can do at the college level.
Thank you very much. I believe, as I'm looking at the time, that we need to wrap this up. And so I will thank all of the panelists and thank all of you for listening. And we will move on then to the closing segment.
Thank you, John, for such a thought-provoking moderation, presentations, and discussions. Distinguished ambassadors, esteemed delegates, and honored guests, as we draw today's program to a close, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thanks to our panel members and the moderator for their invaluable presentations and discussions. Your insights have greatly enriched our discussion. We very much appreciate the sharing of your expertise and the time and effort for it. Now, as we conclude the program of the 2024 United Nations International Day of Older Persons, it is my pleasure to invite Masumi Omo, Chief of the Social Inclusion and Participation Branch at DESA, to the lectern to deliver the closing remarks. Perhaps the best introduction for Ms. Ono is to acknowledge the tone of collegiality and collaboration she sets for the entire branch. Whether the work involves older persons, youth, persons with a disability, caregivers, or family, effective collaboration requires vision and engagement at all levels of civil society and member states. The name of your branch says it all: social inclusion and participation. This is what today has been about, and we thank you for your vision and leadership. The floor is yours. And with Ms. Ono's remark, this United Nations International Day of Older Persons, it concludes today's.
Thank you, Ariana, for your very kind words. Thank you all for joining us on this occasion. You have all inspired us with the stories you shared and the vision you put forward for building strong care and support systems. We thank the NGO Committee on Aging in New York for their continued advocacy and dedication. It's been a real pleasure collaborating, and we at DESA deeply value our longstanding dedication, partnership. Special thanks to you, Mr. Chair Bill Smith, Vice Chair Robin Fenley, as well as the chair of today's program, Ariana Elizage, with support from Christopher Hanway and Luca Pertinava, Magda Kazmarska, and all the volunteers. Thank you so much for your dedication. We would also like to extend our sincere appreciation to the permanent representatives for their leadership and unwavering commitment. Ambassador Wade of Canada, Ambassador Narvaez of Chile, Ambassador Al-Wasil of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the Deputy Permanent Representative, Mr. Odon of Argentina. Before closing this event, I would like to pay tribute to the caregivers, policymakers, advocates, and all those working tirelessly to create a society where everyone, regardless of age, feels supported and empowered. The caregiving documentary clip we viewed today encapsulates the humanity around caregiving, experienced by so many of us. The discussions today brought up the complex needs of care receivers and their families, as well as the challenges faced by caregivers in various contexts. We urgently need greater investment in care and support systems, and we have a lot of work ahead of us, but we are all in this together as we work towards a world where everyone can age with dignity, autonomy, and agency. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful International Day of Older Persons.